Good evening. I'm Tom Powers, Head of Adult Services at the Flint Public Library. On behalf of the staff and friends of the Flint Public Library, welcome to the Julia A. Moore Poetry Festival. Based on the stains left on the library walls from last year's Poetry Festival, I can assure you that this is the literary high-water mark in Flint this year. I'm also happy to see so many new faces here. Quite honestly, over the past 6 years, so many of the people have attended year after year after year that they have come to realize that what happens here tonight, the form in which it happens is as regular and is set in stone as a Kiwanian luncheon or the Optimist Pledge. Thank you, new people, for being here. It gives me a reason to be at the podium. For the bare few of you in the audience who have yet to learn the facts about Julia A. Moore, you're forgiven. It took 5 Julia A. Moore poetry festivals at the Flint Public Library before our good governor woke up and declared 7 days in December as Julia Moore Week. I'd also like to point out that the man is no slouch when it comes to the calendar department. He picks 7 days that run concurrently from Sunday through Saturday. For the historical record, Julia A. Moore was the wife of a Kent County farmer who penned poetry from the time she was a young girl until she died in 1920. More often than not, her poems were absolutely heart-rending accounts of sad and untimely deaths. The death of a neighbor, the death of a child, and on rare occasions, her poems dealt with mass extinctions, such as the Chicago fire or a train wreck. In 1876, her poems were gathered and published in a book called the Sentimental Songbook. The critics of that day were anything but kind. Bill Nye, a humorist and reporter from the Denver Tribune, after reading the book exclaimed, "Julia is worse than a Gatling gun. I've counted 21 killed and 9 wounded in the small volume which she has given to the public." But in spite of the critics, the Sentimental Songbook enjoyed great popularity and became a bestseller. The reasons for the book's great popularity was that her poems were unintentionally funny and very humorous. They made people laugh. One of Mrs. Moore's greatest admirers was Mark Twain, who loved her poems so much that when he wrote his classic Huckleberry Finn, he created a character after her called Emmeline Grangerford that was loosely based on his favorite poet, and he also wrote a parody of Julia's verse that appeared in Huckleberry Finn. That proved to be the inspiration for this poetry parody contest. The first official business at the Julia Moore Poetry Festival is the reading of that portion of Huckleberry Finn in which Twain immortalizes his favorite poet. Please welcome Guy Moxam, a wonderful comic actor and an investment counselor, and the only time he gets those two things confused is when I go in to talk about investments. Guy Moxam.
They had pictures on the walls, mainly Washingtons and Lafayette's and battles and Highland Marys, and one called Signing the Declaration. There was some they called crayons, which one of the daughters, which was dead, made her own self when she was only 15 years old. They was different from any pictures I'd seen before, blacker mostly than was common. One was a woman in a slim black dress, belted small under her armpits with bulges like cabbage in the middle of her sleeves, and a large black scoop shovel bonnet with a black veil, and white slim ankles crossed around with black tape. Very wee black slippers like a chisel. And she was leaning pensive on a tombstone on her right elbow under a weeping willow. And her other hand hanging down at her side was holding a white handkerchief and a reticule, and underneath the picture it said, "Shall I never see thee more, alas." Another one was a young lady with her hair all combed up straight to the top of her head and knotted there in front of a comb like a chair back. And she was crying into a handkerchief and had a dead bird laying on its back in the other hand with the feet pointed up. And underneath the picture it said, "I shall never hear thy sweet chirrup more, alas." There was one where a young lady was at a window looking up at the moon and tears running down her cheeks, and she had an open letter in one hand with black sealing wax showing on the edge of it, and she was mashing a locket with a chain to it against her mouth. And underneath the picture it said, "And art thou gone? Yes, thou art gone, alas." These was all nice pictures, I reckon, but I didn't somehow seem to take to them, because if I ever was down a little, they always give me the fantods. Everybody was sorry she died, because she had laid out a lot more of these pictures to do, and a body could see by what she had done what they had lost. But I reckon that with her disposition, she was having a better time in the graveyard. She was at work at what they said was her greatest picture when she took sick. And every day and every night it was her prayer to be allowed to live till she got it done, but she never got the chance. There was a picture of a young woman in a long white gown standing on the rail of a bridge all ready to jump off, with her hair all down her back and looking up at the moon with tears running down her face. And she had two arms folded across her breast, and two arms stretched out in front, and two more reaching towards the moon. The idea was to see which pair of arms she liked best, and scratch out the other arms. But as I was saying, she died before I got her mind made up, and now they kept this picture over the head of her bed in her room. And every time her birthday come, they hung flowers on it. Other times they kept it covered with a little curtain. The young woman in the picture had kind of a nice, sweet face, but there was so many arms that made her look too spidery, seemed to me. This young girl kept a scrapbook when she was alive and used to paste obituaries and accidents and cases of patient suffering in it out of the Presbyterian Observer, and write poetry after them out of her own head. It was very good poetry. This is what she wrote about a boy by the name of Stephen Dowling Botts that fell down a well and was drowned. Ode to Stephen Dowling Botts, deceased. And did young Stephen sicken, and did young Stephen die? And did the sad hearts thicken, and did the mourners cry? No. Such was not the fate of young Stephen Dowling Botts. Though sad hearts round him thickened, 'twas not from sickness shots. No whooping cough did rack his frame, nor measles drear with spots. Not these impaired the sacred name of Stephen Dowling Botts. Despised love struck not with woe that head of curly knots, nor stomach troubles laid him low. Young Stephen Dowling Botts, oh no. Then list with tearful eye, whilst I his fate do tell. His soul did from this cold world fly by falling down a well. Though they got him out and emptied him, alas, it was too late. His spirit was gone for to sport aloft in the realms of the good and great. If Emmeline Grangerford could make poetry like that before she was 14, there ain't no telling what she could have done by and by. Buck said she could rattle off poetry like it was nothing. She didn't even have to stop to think. He said she'd slap down a line and she couldn't find anything to rhyme with it. She would just go ahead, scratch it out, and slap down another one and go ahead with that. She weren't particular. She could write about anything you choose to give her to write about, just so it was sadful. Every time a man died, or a woman died, or a child died, she'd be on hand with her tribute before he was cold. She called them tributes. The neighbors used to say it was the doctor first, then Emmeline, and then the undertaker. The undertaker never got in ahead of Emmeline but once. Then she hung fire on a rhyme for the dead person's name, which was Whistler. She weren't ever the same after that. She never complained, but she kind of pined away and did not live long. Poor thing. And many's the time I made myself to that little room that used to be hers and get out her poor old scrapbook and read in it when her pictures had been aggravating me some, and I'd soured on her a little. I liked all that family, dead ones and all. I weren't going to let anything come between us. Now, poor Emmeline made poetry about all the dead people when she was alive, and it didn't seem right there weren't nobody to make some about her now she was gone. So I tried to sweat out a verse or two myself, but I couldn't seem to make it go somehow. They kept Emmeline's room trim and nice and all the things fixed in it just the way she liked to have them when she was alive. And nobody ever slept there.
Hal Holbrook, eat your heart out, huh? We've only been doing this poetry festival for 6 years now, and it's ever surprising what you learn every year. This year I learned turn on the microphone before you start the program. Also for 6 years I've been telling you how much Mark Twain loved this poet. And just a week and a half ago, I happened to be browsing through Mark Twain's The Following the Equator, A Journey Around the World, published in 1889, nearly 20 years after Huckleberry Finn came out. And incredibly enough, the book opened to this page. He is describing sailing from somewhere near the Hawaiian Islands to Australia. He's in mid-ocean in the Pacific. 3 days of paradise, warm and sunny and smooth, the sea a luminous Mediterranean blue. One lolls on a long chair all day under the deck awnings and reads and smokes in measureless pleasure. One does not read prose at such a time, but poetry. I have been reading the poems of Mrs. Julia A. Moore again, and I find in them the same grace and melody that attracted me when they were first published 20 years ago, and have held me in happy bondage ever since. I find in them the same subtle touch, the touch that makes an unintentionally humorous episode pathetic and an intentionally pathetic one funny. In her time, Mrs. Moore was called the Sweet Singer of Michigan and was best known by that name. I have read her book through twice today with the purpose of determining which of her pieces has most merit. I am persuaded that for wide grasp and sustained power, William Upson may claim first prize. For the reading of Twain's favorite poem and a sampling of other works by Julia Moore, please help me welcome a lady who has been an institution has become an institution at the Julia A. Moore Poetry Festival, the state's #1 interpreter of Julia A. Moore. Let me introduce her in a rhyme that maybe Mrs. Moore might even have penned. Come all good people far and near, oh come and see what you can hear, when Linda Moxam doth quoet from Michigan's favorite poet. Linda Moxam, for?
All right. William Upson. Come, all ye good people far and near, oh, come and see what you can hear. It's of a young man, true and brave, who is now sleeping in his grave. Now, William Upson was his name. If it's not that, it's all the same. He did enlist in the cruel strife, and it caused him to lose his life. He was Jesse Upson's oldest son. His father loved his noble son. This son was 19 years of age in the rebellion he engaged. His father said he might go, but his dear mother said no. Stay at home, dear Billy, she said. But She could not turn his head. For go he would, and go he did. He would not do as his mother bid. For he went away down south there, where he could not have his mother's care. He went to Nashville, Tennessee. There his kind friends he could not see. He died among strangers far away. They knew not where his body lay. He was taken sick and lived 4 weeks, and oh, how his parents weep, but now they must in sorrow mourn. Billy has gone to his heaven home. If his mother could have seen her son, for she loved him, her darling one, if she could heard his dying prayer, it would ease her heart till she met him there. It would relieve his mother's heart to have seen her son from this world depart and hear his noble words of love as he left this world for that above. It will relieve his mother's heart that her son is laid in our graveyard. Now she knows that his grave is near. She will not shed so many tears. She knows not that it was her son. His coffin could not be opened. It might be someone in his place, for she could not see his noble face. He enrolled in 1863, the next day after Christmas Eve. He died in 1864, 23rd of March, as I was told. Ashtabula disaster. Have you heard of the dreadful fate of Mr. P.P. Bliss and wife? Of their death I will relate, and also others lost their life. Ashtabula Bridge disaster, where so many people died without a thought that destruction would plunge them neath the wheel of tide. Swiftly past the engine's call, hastening souls on to earth, warning not one of them all. It brought despair right and left. Among the ruins are many friends crushed to death amidst the roar. On one thread all may depend, and hope they've reached the other shore. P.P. Bliss showed great devotion to his faithful wife, his pride. When he saw that she must perish, he died a martyr by her side. P.P. Bliss went home above, left all friends, earth, and fame, to rest in God's holy love, left on earth his word and name. The people love his work by numbers. It is read by great and small. He by it will be remembered. He has left it for us all. His good name from time to time will rise on land and sea. It is known in distant climes. Let it echo wide and free. One good man among the number found sweet rest in a short time. His weary soul may sweetly slumber within the veil heaven sublime. Destruction lay on every side, confusion, fire, and despair. No help, no hope. So they died, 200 people over there. Many ties were broken, many a heart was filled with pain. Each one left a little token, for above they live again. Croquet by Moonlight. On a moonlight evening in the month of May, a number of young people were playing at croquet. They mingled together, the bashful with the gay, and had a pleasant time and chat while playing at croquet. This play they call croquet, croquet. This play they call croquet. It is amusement for the young. This play they call croquet. On that pleasant evening, the moon shone clear and bright, and every heart among that crowd was filled with great delight. It was a merry party, for Lady Dell was there. Her merry laugh above the rest was heard by all so fair. This play they call croquet, croquet. This play they call croquet. It is amusement for the young. This play they call croquet. She was the belle that evening, admired by great and small, and all the boys liked to play with the girl and blue ball. She was a splendid player, so lively and so gay, for she was skilled in playing that pleasant game, croquet. That play they call croquet, croquet. That play they call croquet. It is amusement for the young. That play they call croquet. 2 young men were among them that loved this pretty Dell. Although I write about them, their names I will not tell. They were fine young fellows, so bashful and yet so gay. They tried to beat the girl that with the blue ball play. This play they call croquet, croquet. This play they call croquet. It is amusement for the young. This play they call croquet. With those handsome fellows, Dell thought she'd have some fun. The one of you that'll catch me may see me safely home. The play began in earnest between those fine young men. To catch the girl with the blue ball was impossible for them. This play they call croquet, croquet. This play they call croquet. It is amusement for the young. This play they call croquet. She went around the playground so full of life and gay. She left them at the farther arch, so she beat them at croquet. It was late that evening, and as I went away, I know not how they came out in that pleasant game croquet. This play they call croquet, croquet. This play they call croquet. It is amusement for the young. This play they call croquet. So, Croquet by Moonlight is pleasant as you see, for business cares were laid aside in that little company. So playing at croquet, croquet, so playing at croquet, it is amusement for the young folks, this play of croquet. This play they call croquet, croquet. This play they call croquet. It is amusement for the young, this play they call croquet. To my friends and critics. Come, all you friends and critics, and listen to my song. A word I will say to you, it will not take me long. The people talks about me. They've nothing else to do but to criticize their neighbors, and they have me now in view. Perhaps they talk for meanness, and perhaps it is in jest. If they leave out their freeness, it would suit me now the best to keep the good old maxim, I find it hard to do, that is, to do to others as you wish them to do to you. Perhaps you've read the papers containing my interview. I hope you good, kind people will not believe it true. Some editors of the papers, they thought it would be wise to write a column about me, so they filled it up with lies. The papers have ridiculed me a year and a half or more. Such slander at that interview I have never read before. Some reporters and editors are versed in telling lies. Others, it seems, are willing to let industry rise. The people of good judgment will read the papers through and not rely on its truth without a candid view. My first attempt at literature is The Sweet Singer by name. I wrote that book without a thought of the future or of fame. Dear friends, I write for money. With a kind heart and hand, I wish to make no enemies throughout my native land. Kind friends, now I close my rhyme and lay my pen aside. Between me and my critics, I leave you to decide.
I guess Julia Moore could put critics in their place. For my money, the only thing lacking in this year's observance of Michigan's Julia A. Moore Week was Linda Moxam reading the immortal Croquet by Moonlight from the Capitol steps. For the entire life of this august literary event, only two people have served as its judges. Year after thankless year, they have sat down with hundreds of submissions and sorted, ordered, selected, rejected, and named the winners. The Julia A. Moore Poetry Contest is more a reflection of their collective sense of humor, judgment, and taste. Yes. They have made the Julia A. Moore Poetry Contest and Festival a living, breathing entity. Ladies and gentlemen, the Dr. Frankenstein and Igor of the Julia A. Moore Poetry Festival, Jan Worth and Danny Rendelman.
I don't like that very much. Well, each year there seems to be an affliction, perhaps we could even call it a pestilence, that corresponds with the Julia A. Moore Poetry Contest. In my dark night of the soul, I privately think of the Julia A. Moore Contest as the Ebola virus of poetry. What causes this periodic disruption, this mad cow disease, this literary El Nino, these metric sunspots, these poetic burps or hail bops? What causes them, nobody knows. I think I know. People, be afraid. Be very, very afraid. All these years, 42 dog years to be exact, and I choose the word dog for a reason. We've been assuming that as our poetasters carried on, rampaged on, raved on, fumbled and stumbled on, their menacing toothy grins gleaming like a Grateful Dead t-shirt at Glow Bowl, all this time we assumed that Julia just took it, slumbering innocently below the tulips, plump farmer's wife's hands folded peacefully over one over the other. But this year, as Danny and I read the submissions, there seemed to be a rattle on our stairs. The milk went sour. There was a sudden darkening of the moon, and my chin sprouted 2 new black hairs. The cat bit the fur off his derriere, and my husband cried out, "Viagra, Viagra!" Suddenly it hit me. She's alive. This is the year Julia A. Moore struck back. The poets were becursed, my friends. Like a pickle after Hershey's kiss, Julia smote them into draggy sobriety. No matter how much they tried, their parodies curdled and their rhymes whined. This is what Julia, oh yea, the all-powerful, the most beloved, did. Like Wall Street, she forced a bull market. Everyone was persistently sanguine, disturbingly sincere, and blastedly optimistic. The prosperity that a canny Julia foisted upon our poets left us, the judges, pathetically bankrupt of truly bad verse. Oh, Julia, Julia, we cried midway in our dismal judging. Bring back the bear market, the dark confessionals, the skimpy talent and pie-eyed hubris. She almost guaranteed that we wouldn't laugh. She cackled as she tackled the basest instincts and made them alkali. Nay, she threw lime into the outhouses of the poets, destroying everything they had worked so hard to expel. But finally, even the revenge of Julia could not completely stop the relentless tide of ludicrousy. Even the curse of Julia could not keep presidential concupiscence down, alleged concupiscence down. Even she could not prevail over special prosecutors and shapely interns. Even she could not stop Michael Moore from gaggling at Phil Knight or take away the dependable bathos and exaggerated dread of dental hygiene. Even she could not take away Richard Simmons. She may be the big one, the secret succubus from the west side of the state, the wraith you see in Kalamazoo in line behind Elvis. But despite her best voodoo, bad poetry in the name of Julia A. Moore survived. The spider pounced, but the cockroach got away.
Good evening. Good evening. As most of you know, this is the season of sitcom finales, unless, of course, you have been living in a cave or have cast your television into the burning maw of corrosive hellfire as the cursed handmaiden of Satan. What, as the young say, ever. I come to you tonight as the bearer of either bad or good news, depending on your point of view, aesthetic sensibilities, and extent of dementia praecox. Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the last Julia A. Moore Poetry Festival. Oh, no. But, on the other hand, let not our celebration here tonight be seen as elegy, for next year may see the rise of Julia once more triumphant, soaring like a phoenix from the ashes of lethargy, ennui, and halitosis. But, on the other hand, let's not get our hopes up too far. We're not talking about Viagra here. Failing such a resurrection. Pause. I would like to give dear Julia her own finale, with the understanding that it may be only a ploy to rouse you from your apathy like a virulent kick in Fluffy's ear, and send you forth into the streets with torches and truncheons to demand a new contract, a better time slot, and cameo appearances by Burt Reynolds, Charles Nelson Riley, and Charo. I would like to bid fond and not so fond farewell to a cast of characters, Jan and I and you, if you found yourself with nothing much to do on Wednesday evenings these last 6 years, have come to know and loathe. First, there is a man of a certain age who calls himself the poet formerly known as Prince, who lives in Spade Bull, Illinois. Year after year, he has entertained us with, shall we say, poetry in a bucolic vein, celebrating as he has farm life. I think I speak for all of us in noting that we have learned much more than we would really want to about diseases of sheep, the critical mass of hen house temperatures, and how to worm a goat. This country gentleman has informed us that he does have a book publishing offer from Lower Slippery Ravine Technical College Press, tentatively entitled, "Everything I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in That Smallish Shed Back There on the Property Line." I know you join us in wishing him well. And we would be remiss if we forgot to say ta-ta to another of our favorite scribblers, Miss Agatha Stearns Wadsworth Fenimore Arbuthnot, but otherwise known to her friends as Sissy Cramp. While Sissy never quite caught on to the rules of the contest, witness her insistence on purple crayon, onion skin paper, postage from 1936, and poems untranslated from the Sanskrit, we couldn't help but admire her spunk, stick-to-itiveness, and generous bribery. Actually, ta-ta isn't the properly operative gesture of farewell for Sissy, as we have learned recently of her timely departure to another astral plane. So let us just say, see ya, babe. Another regular in our pantheon of poet wannabes was that child prodigy, Little Richard Penniman, whose verses are engraved in our hearts like gravel in gizzards. Who can forget his tiresome but feisty odes to prepubescent lust, such as, "I would give you my love beads if I could figure out how to get them over my head. Someday I will love you more than any man has a right to, but right now I'm grounded for feeding the cat Prozac." And long our favorite, "Intimations of Immortality as Recollected in Tranquility, Baby." The last we always suspected to be plagiarized, but could never figure out what juvenile detention hall he lived in to talk to him about it. But perhaps our most memorable entrant had to be her ladyship, Lady Jane Purser, late of Blissfield, Ohio, Climax, Michigan, Lac du Sediment, Wisconsin, and Keister Rapids, Iowa. We are given to know that Lady Jane's last request was to have her ashes strewn over her most beloved and inspirational towns. And so she was. But one of her relatives was prescient enough to save a few dollops of Lady Jane's remains and send them on to us, the judges of her favorite contest, as a memorial. A memorial to what? We don't know. As the poems she entered were, to a line, some of the most god-awful examples of verse we have ever seen. A couple lines from an early entry should suffice. "Shall I compare thee to a cockfight behind the granary? Thou art more like Samsonite luggage, or maybe a mango." Or this, from her Joyce Kilmer phase. "I think that I shall never see a Guatemalan hairdresser as lovely as a Carthaginian State Farm insurance agent." Enough. Despite her failings, we know that Lady Jane's heart, or perhaps esophagus, was probably in the right place. We wish her well, wherever the rest of her lands is cultivated, and provides sustenance to some fairly noxious weed. And so there you have it. A few of the characters from what we like to call the Julia era. There, of course, are hundreds more, each as irritating and irrational as the next. But in bad poetry, as in all other cutting-edge media, time is money. And I'm not getting nearly enough money for my time. Jan and I are moving on, striking out for greener pastures, watching where we step as we go, and moving into free agency. We hope to be traded to this bad poetry contest team in Fort Lauderdale, where we hear the big bucks are, and where, as the song goes, the weather suits our clothes. Wait a minute. Goes, close. Perhaps you'll be hearing from us again. Thank you for your kind attention, and thanks for attending tonight's gala celebration of Julia and her ilk. Enjoy.
On behalf of the Julia A. Moore Poetry Festival, I can only tell you this. We hope that Jan and Dan will be released for long enough to be able to judge next year's contest, too. We have once again managed to shepherd this program to the point where we give up control and turn it over to the poets who have been named as finalists in the Julia A. Moore Poetry Parody Contest. The rules are few and simple. The poem should be a parody of a famous poem, poet, or style of poetry. It should contain no profanity, and 50 lines is just about all the judges can stand. The order in which the poems are to be read does not reflect their placement in the contest. Our first poem comes to us from Barry Lane in Shoreham, Vermont. Mr. Lane could not or would not make the trip. And as in the past, we have arranged for an accomplished, erudite, multi-talented substitute to be on hand to lend a hand. Among her other accomplishments, this person has the amazing ability to point to a map over her shoulder and unerringly point to Alpena, the Sioux, and Bay City without ever turning around. Ladies and gentlemen, Flint's First Lady of Weather, Miss Norma Hall of WJRT TV 12. She will read Barry Lane's Ode, and oh, I can hardly wait for this, Ode to a Dental Hygienist.
Thank you, Tom. Ode to a Dental Hygienist, Barry Lane. As the 6th-month checkup draws nigh, my heart beats fast, my molars sigh. For he will scrape at my bicuspids like a chisel hacks at Chevy's rusted. Oh, how can I reveal this urgent need when so profuse my gums do bleed, and I become so at a loss if only each night these teeth I'd flossed? He asks me now if I'm in pain, as blood drips from my chin like rain. Oh, fill this heart with Novocaine, numb these lips, or I'll go insane and tell him what I really think as he hovers there above the sink, rinsing tools of all my plaque. Oh, wretched life, oh, seat go back. And touch me with those plastic gloves, and fill me with 1,000 loves, the greatest you have ever seen in your world of oral hygiene.
Belatedly, I must tell you that the first poem is intended to set a benchmark for decorum, taste, and for being erudite. Sadly, it has. Our second poem comes from Ray Miller of Grand Ledge, Michigan. Mr. Miller is here to read his entry entitled To Monica.
Can't actually read with it on. Monica, thy beauty is to me like a younger, plumper Tipper Gore, serenading little Elvis on bended knee upon the Oval Office floor, my intern, aide, and paramour. Thy buxom mounds I would empower, thy bouncy hair, thy winsome frock. Call back my thoughts in quiet hours to the glory that was Little Rock and the grandeur of Jennifer Flowers. I felt your pain, I felt your thigh, crossed pleasure's bridge to love's bazaar. Sweet fragrance not inhaling could never bar. A final favor dare I decry, don't spill the beans to Kenneth Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. That's not too big a stretch, really, is it, from oral hygiene to the president? Excuse me. Our third entry comes from Joe Lewis of Oak Park, Michigan. It wasn't until this afternoon that I realized that Mr. Lewis was the winner of the very first Julia A. Moore Poetry Contest in 1993. The poem was entitled Death of a Manatee and began with these now immortal words, a poem without profanity, the death of Jack the Manatee. We hope that the Julia A. Moore First Place Prize is in good hands and has a place of honor on your mantle. I am afraid to tell you that Mr. Lewis has more bad news for us, as you will find out when he reads The Waning of Our Moon.
The waning of our moon. As our moon waned, her feline bladder failed and marked the house with evil-smelling trail from stairs to bed, our nostrils to assail. Deep in the carpet, pungent liquid sank, which, despite every cleaning method, stank as rotting urine reeked with odor rank. How hard we tried, how many remedies, each cheerful with its hollow guarantees and complex with instructions and decrees. How thoroughly we soaked the stench until the carpet squished and nature's miracle, biz or KOE, down to wood we spilled. Solution after solvent and enzyme we tried, time after vain and hopeless time. The putrid smell returned like a bad rhyme. To retrain Moon, we set her in the cage with food and water. Trembling still with age, she moved not. In a puddle dank she lay, eyes filled with reproach, as if to say, I am too old to learn your tricks, I know, but I'm too weary, and I'm now too slow to please you. Said the vet, her temp is low, her body's shutting down. With soothing croon, It's all right, Moon. She readied all too soon the fatal parting shot of euthanasia. All right? She must be nuts. Who could sound crazier? The purring rug that warmed a winter lap was now a lifeless heap of furry crap. We changed the rugs and scraped the pea-stained floor. Our nostrils sense Moon's stinking trail no more, and yet her memory shall long endure, caught in these rhymes of 50 lines or fewer.
I have to tell you now, I have lived with that poem for going on 6 weeks, and every time I read it, every time I heard somebody else read it, it was so sad, and I kept wondering, could something else have been done? As June Allison would say, depends. Whoa. As long as we're wallowing in death and dying, we might as well hear from Wes Schultz of St. Paul, Minnesota, and his poem, To an Athlete Dying Old. The poem will be read by Norma Hall.
Of course, he should have died hereafter, avoiding the derisive laughter, roaring when he sadly tripped where younger men had simply skipped. Today, the news all athletes fear was published loud for all to hear. He could not play another season. His aging muscles were the reason. Clever at last to fade away from fame that shuns the hair of gray. When early fall the winter snows, he shivers in his spandex clothes. Henceforth he'll never jump and shout to winds within or boos without, for when you kick the cameraman, and now you've just and also ran. So rest before the VCR and memorize the heretofore, or hoist the icy bud full up, the long-awaited drinking cup, and round your waist a roll of flab, your feet upon your friend, a lab, to find a life that has unfurled in bubbly waters, ebbed and swirled.
Thank you, Norma. I'm proud to say that finally we have a poet here from Flint that will be coming to the stage. It was submitted by Lori Tomlinson and is entitled The Maven. Lori?
The Maven. Once in daylight bright and cheery, yet I pondered bleak and dreary over many back issues of Vogue and Mademoiselle and Cosmo and more. While I pondered, nearly yawning, suddenly there came a knocking, as of someone forcefully knocking at my kitchen door. "'Tis some neighbor," I said, knocking at my kitchen door, "only this and nothing more." Ah, how sweetly I remember it was in the 1st of May, and the mud of children's sneakers lay as ghost prints on the floor. Brazenly did I wish tomorrow, vainly had I sought to borrow from my magazine surcease of sorrow, sorrow for my girlish figure that was no more. My tanned and toned and size 3 figure, physically fit no more. It is gone now, forevermore. Back into my kitchen turning, the soup upon the stove was burning. Soon again I heard the knocking somewhat louder than before. "Surely," I said, "surely that is my package from UPS. Let me see then what it is and this mystery explore. My diet pills or Thigh Master will be there when I open my door. 'Tis only this and nothing more." At this point my door did open with much exuberance and flutter. in stepped Richard Simmons with his book, Be Fat No More. Not a bow or curtsy made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, parked it on my kitchen floor. Standing there on my linoleum, on my kitchen floor, stood and frowned, and nothing more. Then this gypsy so beguiling coaxed me into smiling, with the grave and stern frown upon his face he wore. Though thy face is shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art surely brazen, sickeningly trimmed and tanned, Richard wandering in from the video store. Tell me what thy worldly purpose is, standing on my linoleum floor. Quoth the guru, fat no more. How I marveled at this ungainly man to put the words so plainly, though in truth his words little relevancy bore. For women cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with children, 2 or 3 or 4, young or old, the age of the mother, with children 2 or more. Your girlish figure is irretrievably gone, forevermore. But Richard still beguiling all my fat soul into smiling, straight I wheeled my kitchen TV in front of Richard out there on my kitchen floor. Then with VCR rewinding, took myself to thinking, fancy unto fancy the garish outfit that he wore. What this trim, tan, toned, thin, ominous man meant before, shouting unto me, fat no more. Then pressing play, he began swaying to the music that was playing. Thus I stood engaged in guessing, by my face I was expressing to this man whose fiery eyes burned into my bosom's core. Was I to follow his lead upon my kitchen floor? And sweating to the oldies, he smiled and said, forevermore.
You're missing a sure bet if that is not sent to Mr. Simmons. I'm sure it will appear in his next book. This next poem, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the title. I will let Dave Summers pronounce it. Please welcome Dave Summers of Holly, Michigan, who will read his entry.
Well, I'm not too sure myself. I called it Euterpe Agonistes, Euterpe being the Greek goddess or Greek muse of lyric poetry. It takes a heap of thinking and a scratching of your dome for you to write an epic grand or just a plain old poem. But if it's got a rhythm clear and a good old rhyme or two, why, that's the sort of good old poem for good old me and you. If you can find a simile or a metaphor for show, a tropy or a trochee, most any kind, you know, a tenor and a vehicle, they just might do you proud. And if they fit your meter, why, shout 'em right out loud. You can feel the satisfaction and elation that comes when you put 'em down on paper with a pencil or a pen. And if you get to hankering to see your verse in print, just stuff 'em in an envelope and send 'em off to Flint. Why, you might find that you've been blessed hitherto here before, and you could rank with Eddie Guest or even Julie Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. You know, it is such a pleasure. A lot of this poetry was going right over my head. And now we got us a poem that even the Clampetts could understand. Our next poem comes from an annual finalist in this contest and a past first place winner. Please welcome from Jackson, Michigan, Anthony Thomas Sutton.
Send in 50 entries, you don't know which one. Okay. I like to think of this piece as what would happen, the kind of poetry that would happen if Jared Manley Hopkins had a little too much cough syrup. The piece is called Obad. Why do little puppies' legs stick straight up like the legs of a four-legged stool when they're drowned in the neighbor's unfenced pool? Do their little blaring eyes see blindly the beguiling smiles of the neighbor's cat who wanders so succinctly by and sniffs those idle toes, now perpendicular in repose? Yeah, sure, the feline race seems to have always envied dogs their chummy access to the human race. That's why tabbies watch amused from their lowly perches safe on high, from the barking foe below bemused. But surely in their household world there is some petty parity. Since both are fed by master's hand and both are slept by master's bed, they can't really hate each other, can they? And thus, I think the furball from next door must come to mourn, if not adore, her late lamented canine chum, who left her so abruptly in mid-chase, since it was from his backyard she was fleeing from, pursued by one who only sought his rightful place, and who sunk from grace. Because he followed well, but not too wisely, her nimble aerial retreat. Does she, who caused the frightful fracas, does she understand this rigor mortis? Does she, who sits like death on window sill when happy sun arises, know the grave repose to which she sent my Herbert after his demises? And does she cry? And does she weep to sniff these rigid pedal extremities which skyward peep? And will she moan when left alone beneath the moon's colloidal glance because her body's turned to stone? I think not. Proud wretch of fate, when fall's leaves undump upon you, and you bemoan your outward state, you will weep the winter through. It is cats whom you will mourn for.
I think Mr. Sutton absolutely typifies the poet who submits to the Julia Moore Poetry Festival. There is a man who has the touch, or there is a man who is touched. Next up is the second entry from Ray Miller to be chosen as a finalist in this year's contest. The poem is Bad Willie Blake's Flaming Tigers and will be read by Norma Hall.
As an animal lover, I feel I'm really almost overcome this evening, but we'll carry on for Julia's sake. Tigers, tigers, baseball's blight, getting pasted every night. Every season, a few less fans, and a new year, 3-year building plan. Your hitting's weak, your fielding's fair, your pitching staff needs major repair. The only success in Tiger Town is the effort to keep the payroll down. For the new millennium in a new ballpark, on a new losing streak you'll soon embark. Each year I hope to no avail, you'll finally meet the new pay scale. Under ownership of that pizza guy, you exit from the pennant race by mid-July. You are such a group of rub-a-dubs, you're actually worse than Chicago's Cubs. Tigers, talent slight, losing again with scarce a fight. And if the fans should get their fill, just sell the team to Jacksonville.
Thank you, Norma. I have to tell you that this afternoon a Chicago radio station called me and wanted to talk about the Julia Moore Poetry Festival and wanted to talk about the entries and so forth, and I had to read them that poem with that stanza. And ladies and gentlemen, we got the raspberry from Chicago. Our next poet comes from Davisburg, Michigan. It is Mr. Timothy Dean Holmes, who will read his "Oh, oh, Captain, my Captain."
This is the 4th year I've entered this distinguished event. I have achieved honorable mention twice and been a finalist twice. About these 4 poems, I have noticed some disturbing facts. Of these 4, 3 contain some direct or indirect reference to genitalia or undergarments. The 4th was a shameless pandering poem to the bard herself. Of the 3 aforementioned genitalia/undergarment poems, 2 were about our dear President Clinton. I do not know for which these statistics disturbs me most, concern for my own personal mental health or that of our illustrious honorable judges. I'm sure it is some Freudian thing that I wish not to understand anyway. But as one of our giant American philosophers said, I'm just so proud to be here. The last time I was a finalist, I was quite nervous, and I thought maybe this would abate, but it appears it hasn't, because I'm doing a radio show at Oakland University now, but I look at a wall, I don't look at people while I'm doing that. I did a little promo. Is anybody here due to my efforts? Our 110 watts of massive power doesn't go very far, I guess. Well, before Tom gives me the hook, I better get on with my poem. Oh, oh, Captain, my Captain. Apologies to Walt Whitman. Oh, Captain, my Captain, your fearful slip is done. Your ship has hit the fan when the prize you sought was fun. The reporters are near, the news to hear about the nuble Miss Monica. The visits were purely professional, my captain said. She came to play my harmonica. The reporters asked about the gift of a dress given to Miss Monica. It wasn't a dress, but a T-shirt, Lawyer Ginsburg said. I received a similar one for Hanukkah. But oh, tart. Oh, Ms. Tripp's words be said. When to the press my captain lies, each star rising brings my captain dread. Oh, Captain, my Captain, zip up and smell the coffee. Zip up, for your knickers are down, your hand in the cookie jar. For you, bouquets of flowers, Jennifer, that is, a dozen, she said. For you, a Jones you cannot shake, she doth remaineth staid. Hark, Captain, my dear sovereign, the white water doth seep in. Your morality is in question, but my captain says it was not fornication. My captain does not answer, his lips are pale and still, but many a state trooper doth surely speak at will. Your ship has come unanchored, though your missus stands a-caring, even after Miss Paula insists you stood there vessel bearing. So zip up, my captain, and zip up tawdry press, 'cause we, the common public, care nothing for this mess.
I know, that's the second poem about the president, but remember back, give thanks that this is not a Wayne Bobbitt year. And now I give you our next doggone poem, entitled My Last Dachshund, by Lynn Constant of Huntington Woods.
I want to say that I think everybody's poems are wonderful, and I want to get out of here and go home. My last dachshund, with apologies to Robert Browning. That's my last dachshund mounted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I called her Gretel. Ernst, dear, don't you think she merited a name from Humperdinck? She was the best of doxies. See those paws? 'Twas I who put the polish on her claws. I gave her treats. Und zwei baked boneless trout und Wiener Schnitzeln mit sauerkraut. I walked her daily in the Hessel Park. I loved to hear her gently sounded bark. My Gretel was the best of doxies all, and now she's stuffed and mounted on the wall. Just look at her, so lifelike, dearest Ernst. For that, I credit Hans, the taxidermist. Who's served my kennel well for many years. You see, he stuffed and mounted other deers like Heidi, Liesel, Ava, Esmeralda, Birgitta, Bridget, Edith, and Griselda. I love them each. I love those doxies all who hang beside my Gretel on the wall. You wish, dear Ernst, to touch her silky fluff? Please do so. You can't even tell she's stuffed. Go on, dear Ernst, and stroke her silky head, while I relate why Gretel now is dead. I took her to Von Putzer's to be bred to Max, his best in show. In fact, I led my Gretel to his run, and in a trice Max made them one. To watch was rather nice. The weeks sped by, and Gretel's due date came, and so the pups, all four. And all the same, I looked and blinked and gasped and cried, "Ach, Mutzen! Instead of purebred pups, I have 4 Mutzen." Their legs were long, their bodies short and wide. Their pointy ears had spots along the side. Mein Gott! Dear Ernst, could I have felt much worse to know Von Putzer's Max was not her first? My kennel's name, it ranks with Dansk and Glock, had now become the country's laughing stock. I did what any man would do, dear Ernst. The next day I called Hans, the taxidermist. You say you have a litter I can see? Ach, wunderbar. There must be one for me. So there she hangs as if alive, my dox. For lunch, would you like coco van or lox?
Our next poem is a dire warning entitled, "Do Not Go Naked Into That Good Ambulance." It is amazing what will inspire poetry. It comes to us from Dean Nicolai of Jackson, Michigan. Dean, the podium is yours.
The thing I like about poetry is that it allows us to share common experiences, like the last time you collapsed in the shower and were unconscious for 45 minutes. Forgive me, Dylan Thomas, who I'm sure will never speak to me again. Of course, he won't speak to you either. Do not go naked into that good ambulance. Do not go naked into that good ambulance. Middle age should stand at close of shower curtain. Rain, rain against the dirty skin. Though conscious men on end know which way is up, the brain seizes the moment to out in the lights. Do not go gentle to the bottom of the tub. Good Morpheus his wave overcomes, sleeping so dark, striking like Tony Perkins in the Hitchcock classic. Sleep, sleep against the cold fiberglass. Staccato theme I hear, E, 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 as I go to sleep. Do not go gentle to the bottom of the tub. Grave man near death, dial 116. Wait, flip the paper over, it's 911. Sleep, sleep against the cold fiberglass. And you, John Thomas, there on the sad height. First my fingers prune, then my toes. I hope they know about the shrinkage factor. Sleep, sleep against the cold fiberglass. And now flat-boarded into that good ambulance, wailing while the ECG is connected. At the hospital, it's the EEG. Next morning, it's the EGG. Scrambled, I think. Do not go naked into that good ambulance. Recall mother's admonition to don clean undies in anticipation of impending accident. Remember, semper ubi sub ubi. Do not go naked into that good ambulance.
Thank God we're getting near the end. Our next poem was written by James Chrisman, who won last year's contest with the well-remembered poem, The Composting of Sam McGee. I suppose it's only natural that there is a natural progression from horse manure to four-wheel drive. Please welcome Mr. Chrisman, who reads his Charge of the Light Truck Brigade.
I sent in 2 poems this year, and it reminds me of one of my dad's favorite jokes about a guy who gets 2 ties for Christmas, and he comes downstairs wearing one, and his wife bursts into tears. You didn't like the green one. I also like to thank Alfred Lord Tennyson for giving me a perfectly awful poem to start with. Charge of the Light Truck Brigade. I can say this. Half a brain, half a brain, half a brain onward, all on the Valley Freeway rode the 600, forward the Light Truck Brigade. Charge for the gas, they said, onto the Valley Freeway rode the 600. Forward the Light Truck Brigade, would any man be laid? Yo, though not one with a clue he'd ever blundered, there's not to reason why or introspect like Robert Bly. There's to be a 4-wheel guy onto the Valley Freeway rode the 600. Codgers to the right of them, codgers to the left of them, codgers in front of them, blinked and lane wandered, clinching till their jugulars swelt. Boldly they accelerated and dwelt upon the geezers' bumpers. From their lips they rebel yelt. On rode the 600. Flashed all their fog lights bare, yellow as their buzz-cut hair. Their decals screamed, no fear, and peed upon Chevys while timid drivers wondered. Hats backward they drove cross solid lines. Rotarians and blue hairs dodged from jacked-up Fords behind. And on to gravel shoulder, then pulled back a road far behind the 600. Codgers to the right of them, codgers to the left of them, codgers in front of them, blinked and lane wandered. Clinching till their jugulars swelt, boldly they accelerated and dwelt where Bud is drunk so well, yet leaving there many fell down, call for the jaws of life. When the dewdrop ends expel the besotted 600, when can their giant stereos fade? Oh, the manly boom booms they made, all the littler drivers woofed. Honor the muddy ruts they laid, honor the Light Truck Brigade, hose down the 600.
I don't know whether you call it good news or bad news, but we've arrived at the last poem to be submitted to this contest. It was written by B. Rose Fine of Ypsilanti and is entitled The Horoscope.
Pity poor Miss Mary Tolliver. Sought she out a famed astrologer. Slipped him a 50 so he'd acknowledge her. Said she, "Oh, wise one, I must confess, my life's in a tizzy, an awful mess. I am nearly 20 and still husbandless." The astrologer perused her chart and said, "I've got your answer. Your rising sign is Pisces, and your moon's afflicted in Cancer." This astrobabble that he spewed, of course, did not entrance her. Continued he, "Your 7th house, you know, has Virgo on the cusp, and I care not for that cruel angle made by Uranus." "You are star-crossed, my dear. 'Tis no wonder your life's a bust." The astrologer said, "Mary, you didn't inquire, but you're facing a transit which is fairly dire. Pluto is forming a square to your sun, and Mars's opposition to Venus has barely begun. The north node of the moon says there's a karmic debt to pay. Saturn will be harshly aspected all through the month of May. The mirror in the sky did not on Mary blessings bestow. With heavy heart and eyes downcast, she drove away so slow. 'Twas then the universe conspired to complete her tale of woe. In a nonce, events manifested what the cosmos had portended when her 97 Saturn by a Taurus was rear-ended. An ambulance arrived and to hospital she was sended. 'Twas Miss Mary's fortune, as she hovered nigh to death, fair Venus by progression did bequeath a kindness, and bade that Cupid's arrow pierce a passing doctor's breast. For countless hours by her bedside did the smitten doctor linger, and though languishing in coma deep, Miss Mary moved her finger. He adorned it with a 2-carat token of his love that he did bring her. Poor Mary's days are on the wane, consciousness she'll ne'er regain, and on her headstone it will explain that this miss won't miss her life of pain. As she came to the end of her days, 'neath her lover's worshipful gaze, her lifelong wish had been fulfilled, and ne'er would she know just how she'd been killed. Blissfully unaware was she that in her final hours her life would serve as testament to the planetary powers. She ultimately experienced the essence of her being and died the bride of Dr. Jack Kevorkian.
And so we come to a merciful end in the reading of the finalists for the Julia A. Moore Poetry Parody Contest. Before we announce the winners of this year's contest, I would like to thank the family of Julia A. Moore for having a great sense of humor and supporting this program over the course of 6 years. The festival also serves as kind of an informal family reunion. I would like to briefly introduce the members of the Moore family in attendance tonight. Please stand when your name is called. There is Sally Day, the great-granddaughter-in-law of Julia Moore. Savannah Adams, the great-granddaughter. Annette Menard, the great-great-granddaughter. This is getting difficult. Matt Menard, the great-great-great-grandson. And Leslie Moore, the great-great-granddaughter. And now for the moment that most of you have been waiting for, or dreading, the announcement of the winners of the Julia A. Moore Poetry Parody Contest. At least 3 poets are going to walk out of this room bearing these magnificent, specially commissioned, individually engraved, 100% plastic trophies. Only modesty prevents us from revealing the price of these one-of-a-kind emblems of poetry excellence. One warning, please do not place them in direct sunlight. I have in my hand 3 envelopes containing the 3rd through 1st place winners. If Miss Leslie Moore, for 6 years has opened these, if she would join me on stage to do it once more. The 3rd place winner is
Do Not Go Naked Into That Good Ambulance by Dean Nicolai.
The 2nd place winner,
The Maven by Lori Tomlinson.
and the 1st place winner. Ta-da!
Oh, oh, Captain, my Captain by Timothy Dean Holmes.
You will notice that there is 1 trophy left up here. We decided to do something a little different this year. We decided to have a People's Choice Award that would be given to the poem that received the loudest laughs and the longest prolonged ovation. I can't pronounce it, can you? The winner is Eutrope. Clampett poet. Thank you, Leslie. The judges also say that it was a very close call. An honorable mention should go to Ray Miller, who annually brings a team with him. I hope you enjoyed tonight's program as much as all the people who had a hand in putting it together. We hope the Julia A. Moore Poetry Festival heightens the awareness of the fun that can be had with literature. I also want to announce, obviously, there is radio, there is television here. This program will be aired in its entirety on Comcast. WUOM Radio in Ann Arbor will be airing parts of this program. WFUM TV 28 will be doing a part of a program on the Julia Moore Poetry Festival. And just to show you how infectious bad poetry is, I have a press release from Comcast Channel 17 that goes, "Tell a friend, tell a pet. Julia A. Moore Poetry Festival has come and went." But don't fret, just turn on your TV set and you will hear and see the best of the best or the worst of the worst of the 1998 Julia A. Moore Poetry Fest on Comcast Cable 17, Thursday, May 28th at 9 p.m. Thank yous to the Friends of the Flint Public Library for once again sponsoring this event, to the family of Julia A. Moore for their support, their pride in being related to Julia, and their boundless sense of humor. And of course, thank yous to Jan Worth, Danny Rendelman, Linda Moxam, Norma Hall, Guy Moxam, and all the poets from coast to coast who took a chance on being laughed at and submitted a poem. And last but not least, to that immortal Julia A. Moore, whose influence reaches far beyond this simple festival, far beyond what we would ever guess. Ogden Nash said that Julia A. Moore inspired his decision to become a great bad poet rather than a bad good poet. We need more Ogden Nash. Thank you, Julia A. Moore, wherever you are. Thank you for being a great audience and for being a part of this gentle nonsense. Good night.